Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to Strength Spotlight, a LinkedIn Live podcast presented by Strengths Masters. I am Seshasai, your moderator for today's session. And we are thrilled to have you with us as we dive into a topic that deserves far more attention: coaching the middle, which means designing programs that truly empower middle level leaders, the unsung heroes who turn vision into reality. Now, joining me today are two highly accomplished professionals who bring deep expertise in learning and development and talent management, each with over 2 decades of experience. First, we have Alvin Gomes. Kris, a warm welcome. To give a brief introduction, ladies and gentlemen, Kris, with over 2 decades of experience across learning and development, talent management, organization culture, and HR tech systems in financial and consulting companies. Kris currently is the Chief Learning Officer at the Avendus Group. He previously headed learning and development at SBI Funds Management. He is known for creating fun-filled, impactful learning journeys. A University of Westminster alumnus, Kris loves facilitating workshops and being creative in problem solving. Don't teach me, intrigue me is the motto he lives by. Now, outside of work, you'll find him on the football or cricket field or behind the wheel of his car. A very warm welcome, Kris, to this LinkedIn Live podcast. We are honored to have you today.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Sai. Very honored to be here.
And with us also is Abhishek Joshi, founder of Strengths Masters and a Gallup certified strengths coach. He has been instrumental in establishing strengths-based development and transformation practice in numerous organizations, ranging from large-scale companies to growth-stage organizations. Abhishek, a warm welcome. We're again honored to have you with this, in today's LinkedIn Live podcast.
Thank you, Sai. Thanks a lot. Welcome, Kris. Looking forward to have this conversation with you. Thanks a lot.
Looking forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that powerhouse of experience in the room, let's jump right into the heart of today's discussion. What does it truly take to coach the middle and build programs that move the needle for this vital layer of leadership? With the first question coming, Kris, this is to you. From your lens as a Chief Learning Officer, Kris, why are middle-level leaders so critical in today's organization?
Well, so the answer is very simple. If you look at organizations, today, you have the top, you have the middle, and you have the frontline workers, etc. I think the middle layer is the quote-unquote spine of any organization. While the top can do the thinking, understanding, direct where an organization can go, it's the middle layer that has to build in a lot of resilience and a lot of technical experience as well as people management, all bundled into one, a highly pressurized role to drive that engine, right? So if that layer doesn't work, then your organization will have a problem. And it's also interesting because they are your future leaders, as well as they are the closest to at the ground level. So they're sandwiched between these two roles.
Absolutely.
And they're the most important people in actually driving the organization forward. So that's in my view, why that layer is extremely important for any organization.
Great, Kris. I mean, I think you brought up a very valuable point. Middle layer, this is the layer where strategy meets execution. And I really like the word when you use sandwiched, of course, meeting the expectations of the senior stakeholders plus managing the levels below. So they definitely play a very, very crucial interface between the top management and the middle management. And if these guys, they snap, obviously the entire organization is going to crumble. Fair enough. Kris, thank you very much for these wonderful insights. Abhishek, next question, this is for you. Now, from your coaching perspective, Abhishek, what are the biggest struggles or blind spots you see among mid-level managers, and how do strengths help them overcome these?
Sure, Sai. Thanks a lot. And thank you, Kris, for initiating the conversation on this topic. So, Sai, when we look at leaders, specifically middle-level managers from the lens of strength, one blind spot that we see is identity fatigue. What it means is that a lot of leaders who are operating at middle level, they often emulate their senior leaders instead of owning their own leadership style, and that's a big blind spot. So they are struggle often between demands from above And like Kris said, they are sandwiched between the senior leadership team and the team which is going to do execution for them. And in the process, they are under tremendous pressure of expectation. So they are able to unable to identify their own unique leadership style. So when we work with them from the lens of strengths, we are able to actually help them understand and identify their own unique style. In the process, we say that, okay, you take inspiration from your senior leaders, take something from everyone, read books or whatever inspiration you can take from outside the organization. Also take that, but this is your unique leadership style. This is how you are wired. So once they understand it, it becomes quite easy for them to apply how they will do things in their unique way. So this is a very, very specific blind spot sign that we are able to spot while working with middle level leaders.
Great, Abhishek. I mean, I think that's a very interesting point you made. Identity fatigue. Obviously, being a mid-level leader, of course, they would look up to their senior stakeholders and try to emulate them. But yes, in the process, they tend to forget that, yes, because now we are living in such a dynamic and volatile business environment, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So your leadership style, on one hand, we talk about adaptability and agility. And that's where I guess mid-level strengths actually comes into picture. I like the way you beautifully interweaved strengths with identity fatigue, because if every mid-level manager is aware of his or her own strengths, they can accordingly actually mold their leadership style along with, according to the situation. Okay, it's completely contextual. Fantastic. And I think this is turning out to be a great conversation, Abhishek and Kris. Kris, the next question is to you. Despite their importance, okay, middle managers often don't get as much developmental focus as senior leaders. Now, why do you think that gap exists? And what's the risk if we ignore it?
Thanks, sir. That's a very difficult question to ask, right? Because it ranges from organization to organization and how an organization looks at development per se, right? So it's not one size fits all, nor is it same for every organization, right? Now, let's take a simple role of a middle manager. It's actually a huge transition in his or her work life, right? Because he moves from an individual contributor as an executioner, quote unquote, to now he's handling about 3 or 4 different work streams.
Right.
He's still important to do execution. He's still expected to understand people under him and suddenly get into this behemoth of leadership and people management, which comes with its own complications. And he's also looked up to say, what are your thought leadership?
Yeah.
In a way, right? Because they are future leaders. Now, in my personal view, why that layer gets missed is either organizations don't understand the importance of it. That's one aspect. Or there's just too much of execution happening, where then there's a bandwidth issue. And then it's an easy way to say, quote unquote, iske paas time nahi hai, or there's no time. We don't have the bandwidth.
Right.
And even if you carve out training for these leaders or future leaders in that role, you will be pushed back because they say we just don't have the bandwidth, or my managers don't understand why it's important. And I think those are the 2 main reasons why this whole layer gets missed in training or development. Right? That's my personal view. It also depends if they believe training is valuable to them.
Right.
Because let's face it, as you're an individual contributor, most of your work you're doing is technical trainings. It's how do you do the job well.
Yes.
And if you start maneuvering through those roles, right, and then you come into this, they're already fatigued in the type of training that you're doing, right? Today's managers or today's middle line managers are not, they're not the old school. So they're your millennials or getting into your Gen Zs or however you want to put it.
Right.
Where you have a lesser attention span, but there's more onus on your deliverable.
Yeah.
And if you don't perform that role or do well in that role, you are not going to hit your targets or KRAs or however you want to call it. So what do I do? Do I
Right.
spend time to get trained? And if it's going to be as boring as a technical training, why do I spend that 1 day or 2 days or
Right.
however the journey is? I'll rather just do work and show people that I'm working.
Right.
Right. So you have all of this mixed up, matched up. And of course, the underlying rule is the more time I spend in the office, my manager will think I'm doing a lot of work. So
Right.
when you have that mindset and that break, there's no pull for training. And at your top level, you're also saying they need to do work. Bandwidth is not an issue. There's nothing like work life balance. They need to hone their trade because only if they put in their hours, they will end up understanding the role and getting better.
Right.
So that's the problem that we're facing in that transition today, in today's workforce. It's gone are the days where you said, I put in the work, I put in the hard time, I learned my trade and went. Today it's all mixed and there are a lot of gray areas. And I think that's the main reason why that layer actually gets missed out on actually doing training or even understanding why it's important for me to learn a little more, implement a little bit, and hopefully my life will become a little bit better or easier.
Right.
So that's my view on why that entire layer gets missed out.
Yes, absolutely.
Some great perspectives, Kris, because I'm so glad that you brought up, the aspect of generations, especially millennials, in context of. I think few weeks back I was reading an article on LinkedIn where it says that the Gen Zs are even starting, they started questioning the basic traditional model, which has been there for mid-level leaders. They in fact asking questions that is it really worth it? Okay,
Yeah.
is it really worth taking the pressure? So I think somewhere down the line, one is the clarity. Okay, there are so many things which gets, which it's becoming a concoction of multiple. One, we talk about talent mobility. We talk about the expectations are on an all-time high. And also you rightly said that mid-level layers, they're still in the mindset of execution mindset. And as Abhishek said in his response to the first question earlier, that identity fatigue. So on one hand, they are completely sandwiched. They are still under the confusion of whether they should be execution oriented or they should also develop a strategic mindset, or if not both, then how do I identify the sweet spot wherein there is a balance between strategy and execution both, and plus the generational differences. Okay, so I think
But
all
sorry,
these.
sorry if I
Yeah.
just comment. It's not just identity mindset with the middle management. See, we talk about Gen Zs and Gen Alpha now and all of that.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, that is your future workforce.
Yeah.
So you can
Correct.
stand. I know companies that don't hire Gen Zs, and I don't. You can sit back and say Gen Zs, oh, we can't hire them; they're difficult to manage. But what you don't realize is they are your future workforce. You cannot not hire an entire generation just because you don't like the way that they apply
Absolutely.
themselves and they do work because it doesn't fit in
Yeah.
your idea of working. Now, you were brought up into a
Right.
very different generation. They are brought up into a very different generation. It's an identity crisis on both levels. Is one from an organization is you need to accept them and say what type of organization I'm going to build with all of them in and how am I going to go, because you don't have a choice. It's the same thing like AI. You don't have a choice. You have to learn technology. So organization, the top level will struggle at that identity. And then you have the middle managers of this generation who are wondering, what do I do? Because I don't have a clear way of working, and my way of working is very different. I think both have their pros and cons, and both you can learn from each other. But it's a catch-22 for organizations today. And I think for the next maybe 3 or 4, 5 years, I think organizations will have to figure out how they want to actually blend this and work and then grow themselves. And that's going to be a little tricky in the way generations and thought process and information out there is moving.
Absolutely. So I think that brings us to one very important question: that what sort of future-ready workforce are we looking at? Because if you're able to get the answer to this, I think we are more or less, at least we'd be heading in the right direction. Thank you very much, Kris. I mean, that was indeed a great conversation. Okay, Abhishek, coming on to the fourth question, which is to you. So Abhishek, in your stint as an L&D and as a coach, as a strengths coach, you must have coached hundreds and hundreds of leaders using strength-based leadership. Now, when working with middle managers, what's your first step to ensure that the coaching is practical and not just theoretical?
Right, Sai. Thank you for asking this question. Middle-level leadership is one layer which I really, in fact, our team really enjoys working with them, because they often come up with the most challenging questions, and you can't coach them with a very theoretical bent of approach. So let's understand, before I answer this question, let us understand who are middle-level leaders in an organization in terms of their experience and their context. All of them who have been in middle-level leadership role in an organization. The fact is that they would have done something right in their life, and therefore they are there. Otherwise, they would have changed their direction some prior to moving to middle level leaders. And if you look at, the stakes are really high. They are the ones who are driving execution and also understanding strategy. So therefore, and also in their journey. So in various organizations, again depends upon organization to organization, but on an average, a middle level leader has minimum 10 years of experience, and maximum it can go up to, let's say, 20 years, 25 years. That is the kind of range that people have. If you look at the career journey of an individual who has got this much amount of experience, the person must have gone through a number of training programs, coaching programs, and exposed to a lot of framework, technical, non-technical, behavioral, and has great understanding. Now, the challenge is, how do we coach them? The traditional approach, where we look at what is wrong with them and trying to fix it, doesn't work, especially for them. But this approach, when we say, okay, the first challenge is that how can we make the entire process of coaching a non-prescriptive and non-threatening? That's the first goal that we have, because they know a lot, and they don't like prescription, because everyone is giving prescription, because they are tremendous pressure of executing something, delivering right. So everybody is giving them prescription in their environment. So how can we make it non-prescriptive? So first challenge is that when we look at strength-based leadership and when we look at their strengths, it kind of gives them comfort that it is about what is right with me and how can I maximize what is right with me. Because in my entire journey, I focused on everything, but no one came and taught me that, okay, there is something right with you and how can you maximize it. So that's the first approach. So it kind of becomes non-threatening. And then through this, we are able to tell them very clearly that, hey, this is how, if you look at execution, influencing, relationship building, strategic thinking, that is where the application of strength-based leadership happens. So these are areas, in which you have been able to naturally apply yourself really well, because this is how you are wired naturally in this way. But these are areas, where you have to manage yourself well. So we don't tell them that, okay, you focus on strength and forget about weakness. We say, okay, in your journey as a middle level leader, you have achieved something. You have come here. Now focus on these things and maximize these things, but manage these things, because now you know the root cause, where it is coming from, why you're not able to manage for so many years despite getting feedback from everyone. So idea is that we help a lot of root causing with them. Once we do that, action planning becomes very easy. They have experience to create their own action plan, and they may take our help if needed during that part. But what happens, idea is that how can we make it non-threatening, non-prescriptive, and how can we increase their level of conviction in the action plans that they make? Because how to implement that conviction, that knowledge and experience they have more or less, but the conviction that, okay, this is something which is important for me. If I don't do this, this is where it is going to impact me and my environment. So that is how, we approach it, looking at from the lenses of strength. And then this is one area within the organization where we see great challenges. And also, once this is done successfully, their ability to implement something and create an impact and become lighthouse for the entire organization is really very huge. So this is a long answer to your
fantastic.
Very good question, Sai.
Great. So I think our audience has got two different perspectives. One that Kris gave, his perspective, and now Abhishek, your perspective from a lens of strengths. I believe, middle level leaders, as it is, they're under the rubble. We do respect, because I think all three of us, we've been there, we've seen it. Okay, and we think that it's done. It's like done and dusted, but not. It's going to be there. But yes, one thing, what I liked, Abhishek, and you, and what Kris also said. So I'm trying to pick up the thread from both, from the inputs given by both of you all. So Kris spoke about the generational differences, not differences, I mean, of course it's there. So there has to be, so each generation, we need to empathize each other, pick up the good points and then move forward. I guess strength-based leadership, this, like, if you start looking at a person from this lens, it changes the complete paradigm. Okay, and I guess this could be a wonderful tool, when it comes to, and I'm coming from the point of view that, invest in the best and focus on the rest. And your mid-level layer is definitely a critical one and a very pivotal layer if you look at the entire org from top to bottom. And it's a critical part of succession planning as well. Now, this is where I guess if you start looking at this layer from a different lens, a slight change in delta, I think it's going to change. It's like a trim tab. You just, you move it a bit, and the course of the entire course of the ship, changes. I guess so, that's the analogy I'm trying to, I'm just trying to internalize, and I'm sure our audience will also be simultaneously doing that. So thank you very much, Abhishek and Kris. I think it's turning out to be a very, very interesting conversation. Now, the next question, which is to both, so any one of you can take that, Kris, and so I leave it to you and to you both. The question is, can you share a real-world example of a middle manager who turned things around, either in performance or team engagement, because of a coaching or developmental program? Any one of you can take that, Kris or Abhishek.
Yes, I'd like to invite you to go first, if you're comfortable.
It's a beautiful way of putting it, Abhishek, putting me on the spot. No, so I'll one of the philosophies.
No, but you guys are complimenting each other, Kris. I can see a lot of convergence here. Please go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
And I'm happy. I'm really happy to share. I love the way the conversation is going, and it's interesting about Abhishek's perspective as well. It just puts a lot of things where, a lot of learnings into action, and you can actually see where synergies could be done and how it could affect an organization, right? So, but I'm very happy to share my philosophy in the way when we organize trainings. And let's face it, with Avendus, we're about 600 odd people, right? So we are never going to be a large bank or a large insurance company, because so our ability to actually talk to a lot of people is very high in a smaller organization. One of my philosophies whenever we do training is to make it interesting, fun, and simple. Mm-hmm. Right? Those are the three. In fact, most of our trainings, what we do is I make it a point to say, if you're doing a behavioral training, please don't use a PowerPoint, Word document, or Excel sheet.
Right.
Right? Convert the room into, get everyone sitting in a circle where people are sharing and learning from each other. You have chart papers, Post-its, etc., where you're involved in it. Take them away from the whole classroom setup where you have benches and chairs, right? And you do the simple things, right? Now, one of the things which really worked last time, and we did a program for middle managers, and we called it Leading Self, and we just taught them a little bit on little tools on how to handle stakeholders, how to handle people, how to handle downtimes, how to handle stress in small nuggets, because the smaller you go and you teach, the easier it's for them to remember and implement. Right. And one of the things what really learned was when we taught someone the approach of stepping out into the balcony. We called it the balcony, but essentially is when there's too much happening, take a step back, get out of that office, go for a walk down for 5 minutes, come up, you get a better perspective. We said, if you can implement that for a week, you should have clarity when you're doing something. And when we went back and checked on them, it was not about, the biggest thing that they learned is taking a step back and getting out of that space, even if it was for 2 minutes. It put a very different spin on their thought process and where they could implement. And they use this, a lot of these managers use this when they were having difficult conversations with people under them. They used it when they normally were starting to react. So just take a step back, understand it. And that was one of the biggest takeaways which we actually got. And because it was practical, easy to implement. You didn't require any tool to do it. All you had to do is just say, give me a minute, go out, whether you're having a cup of tea, going for a walk, or even if it's just going to the restroom and splashing water on your face. Simple things like that. And I think that was one of the single biggest learnings for us. The more interesting, simple, get peer-to-peer learning, and you realize everyone's on the same page. Everyone is going through the same problems as I am. I am not alone with it. I can share, I can help somebody else with my experiences and learn. And then when I get back to my workplace, can I implement one simple thing, which is in this case, take a step away for a minute, come back, different perspective. Biggest learning. Biggest learning, what the cohort took out of it. It said it has changed perspectives in the way we work. And it has also changed perspective in the way I can keep myself less stressed and a bit at ease when I'm dealing with people or dealing with a situation. So that's one of my biggest learnings, what we did. And we ran this out to about 50 people within the organization. So it did work.
Excellent.
Simple method, yet very effective. I really like the way, it's like, if you really want to unwind yourself and you have just 5 minutes, so there could be multiple ways, because we as human beings, sometimes we tend to overthink. Now, in 5 minutes, what am I supposed to do? I guess this is where we should learn from Gen Z, because these guys have multiple ways to unwind, and they can, this moment the person is stressed, and the very next moment you find the person is absolutely, like cheerful and jovial. I said, boss, what happened? What did you just do? Oh, I did this. Oh, this I didn't even think. Yeah, so I guess great.
And Gen Zs don't have a problem in expressing themselves that way. They say, look, I need
yes.
going on. Yeah. And there's nothing you can do that's going to change their mind. And here we are with the older generation thinking, can I do this? Is it right? Will the other person be offended? Gen Zs don't bother. They say, look, I need a minute, I'll come back. And they come back and they sort it out, right? So simple things you can pick up for them. But that was one of my biggest learnings. And simple, easy, implementable, relatable. You've got them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Kris, for your thoughts. Abhishek, your take on that, please.
Thanks. I completely am aligned with this philosophy that how can we make things very, very simple for participants, and how can you basically what Kris is saying that. How I have understood is, how can you help people internalize certain things and apply it, rather than just giving them a lot of templates, formats, and making things complicated for them. And similarly, I'd like to share an example of how strength-based leadership is a very, very simple philosophy, and it has deeper impact. So many times, organizations ask us when we are in the initial stage that, Abhishek, what change it will bring in the cohort of, let's say, 25 people who goes through this. We say, okay, we have documented ROI and everything of this entire philosophy. But the biggest change will be people will be able to accept self the way they are. And it is very difficult for experienced people to do that. And also they will be able to accept others the way they are. And they will have data points to talk about these two things, if this is so simple. So that's how it works. Keeping in mind, I'll just give a simple example of how a middle-level leader who turned things around. And it was during last year's time, because when we were starting an intervention during this time of the year, after the AOP meet in the month of April. May was the month when the kickoff happened. And the participant who was part of the cohort had a lot of feedback and a lot of data points about him at that point of a time, like 360-degree report and everything. So the person was also very seeking that, okay, how can I implement this? How can I improve on this? Because now I want to create an impact for next year. This year I've got good increment, everything. Now my team size is also increasing. What can I do? These are data points about. So what we help this individual to decode these data points from the lenses of strengths. So there's a very specific strength that individual had out of the top 5 strength was responsibility. Now, people who have responsibility as a strength, they are the ones they take psychological ownership of doing things. Very good in execution. For them, it's like, commitment made is debt and paid. The moment any task comes, they take it psychologically and they want to make sure that it goes right. Why they work is they don't work for credit, they work for credibility in the organization. Now, This was the profile of this individual looking at responsibility as a strength. When we started working with this individual, he had got a lot of feedback, good as well as some areas of improvement, and we started decoding it. So if you look at when someone who has responsibility as a strength uses it correctly, those individuals bring a lot of perfection and value of commitment in the team. So their senior stakeholders are always very happy to have such individuals in their team. But when it comes to leading their team, because they take psychological ownership of doing everything, so it brings a lot of perfection in everything they try to do. The drawback is that if they don't understand that their strengths, if not used correctly, can have negative impact in their team, so they don't delegate quite often. Why? Because they want to do it completely perfectly. In the process, they fear delegation. And if they delegate, what happens that they do a lot of micromanagement because psychological ownership of doing things. And this was something which was written everywhere in the feedback, that at times the person does a lot of micromanagement, does not delegate and all that. So what we did through strength-based leadership, we were able to correlate with these data points with how this natural behavior impacts two dimensions of strengths. Strengths used correctly and strengths becoming an impediment for the individual. And then the next question was that, okay, what should I do, Abhishek? How should I start working on that? I said, okay, look at it. Responsibility has worked for you. You have been someone who has always looked at somebody who takes responsibility. That is the reason you've got good growth in the organization. But only area where you have to work is that you have to understand that perfection is also can define scientifically, and perfection in scientific management definition is Six Sigma. Six Sigma also has scope of 3 mistakes. So you are a human being. Don't try to be perfect in everything. And the first thing that you can do is explain your team members that this is your strength. This comes quite naturally to you. So they will understand that your intent is not to micromanage. It is just that something that happens quite naturally to you. And then you see changes will start happening automatically. So what it did, this entire discussion helped this individual internalize how this individual thinks, feels, and behave naturally. And the small conversations, it led to a lot of changes where this individual started delegating freely and started doing more. And from a very risk-averse individual, this individual became a very risk-taking individual, where execution was his natural strength, but it was as an individual contributor, it always highlighted in his role. But as a team leader, it was never reflecting. So it also started reflecting. So this is a very, very specific example, sign of something that we did last year, and one middle manager turned things around using just the simple understanding of 2 dimensions of strengths.
Fantastic. I mean, when you were telling me this, something popped up in my mind, because I went back 5 years down in my 5 years back, and I was just trying to recall at the back of my head that yes, this instance, it happened with me. Now I can relate. Why did that happen with me at first place? Now I got an answer. Thank you very much, Abhishek, for that answer. And thank you very much, Kris, for giving those wonderful, easily executable perspectives. Okay, so I think that's the critical point. Now, moving ahead, Kris, this question is to you. What kind of program elements have you found most effective in building confidence, capability, and influence among middle leaders?
It's very simple. It's 2 things. One is, I touched upon it in my last reply to you, or my last answer. One is to tell middle managers that they are human, and that they're all going through the same or similar issues, right? And you're not alone. I think a lot of middle managers believe that they need to be amazing at their job. Otherwise, it's a problem, right? And you can't do that every single day. You're going to have bad days, and you're going to have days where you're going to make mistakes. So so the first thing is about keeping it, making sure that everyone is involved in it and everyone understands that we're all going through the same thing and we can help each other. That's for middle managers. That's a huge piece on building confidence, saying, I'm doing well. I'm not alone. I'll be able to do better. That's one. And the second aspect is the second about being capability is simple, implementable. I think if after every program, if someone can implement one thing, one
Yeah.
easy thing, you've moved the needle a long way. So those two aspects for middle managers. It's not about strategy. It's not about saying can you do better? Can you push yourself more? We believe you have potential. I think I think they're more struggling with the transition internally to say, what am I doing? And am I good enough to do this? And can I do this better? So once you get people together saying, we are all in the same boat, let's help each other, and you make things easy and implementable, you've moved the needle to a point where people can start seeing the difference internally. It's not
Fantastic.
about if a manager tells someone, oh, you've done well, or if I feel that I've done better and I feel that I'm better at that small task, I've moved 10% in my life. That's a good start. So those are the two aspects, at least what I believe for that particular character.
Fantastic. So I guess if I have to summarize, Chris, what you just said. So empathy is one of the critical things that this layer deserves, and of course, because why? Because we've all been there. We've gone through it. Second, what I'm also it's actually thinking aloud is that realistic and shared expectations. Okay, that we have your back. Okay, so you don't have to be good on all days. It's acceptable. Okay, you are like this. We've been, and say unrealistic expectation that you need to perform consistently every day, day in and day out, and week after week, month after month. I think that is something where you know uh, the stakeholders need to understand also the levels below that eventually there has to be a line. Okay, because at the end of the day, because I really like the way when you started that, first of all, make them understand that they are human. Okay, they're not robots. And especially when we're talking
It's a very
in the world of
different. It's a
AI.
very different. So it's a very different connotation. Imagine me telling you, or if you're my manager and you keep on telling me that we want you to succeed, you must do well,
Yeah,
you must do well. There's more potential in you. We can see you shine. You need to see it. I am going to be under that pressure to perform. But if you flip the switch and
absolutely.
say, you know what, you're going to fail in something, it's okay. You fail, I
It's
fail,
okay.
we learn
Yeah,
together, but we will succeed. Don't worry, we have each other's back. It's fine. Let's get this done. My perspective
absolutely.
changes.
Right.
My perspective,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the difference in what that particular cadre requires.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess, as Abhishek said, if you start looking at each manager with a lens of strengths, I guess that's going to be the game changer going forward. Okay, so let me. So with this, let's move to the next question, Abhishek. This question is to you. Uh, how do you help middle managers recognize and apply their strengths when they are caught between pressures from above and below?
Sure,
So I
Sai.
guess we've answered this, but yes, I mean, since yeah. So if you have
Yeah, so
some
middle
interesting,
managers
yeah,
are under tremendous pressure always, and they have, first of all, knowledge and skills to deal with that pressure. It's not that they don't have
yeah.
knowledge and skills to deal with the pressure. They have knowledge and skills to deal with that pressure. So when we work with them using strengths, we are very specifically able to tell them that how will they apply themselves in specific pressure situations. So, for example, someone who has a strength called harmony, people of harmony as a strength, they are the ones who like harmonious environment. If there is a conflicting situation, harmony, their strength will always drain them. We tell them how it will fuel them, how to apply yourself in a crisis situation using your natural strength. It's very, very simple sign. So, using their knowledge and skills, how will they apply it? So, when that happens, it becomes very simple. They go through pressure situation everywhere. They find their unique way, their own way of applying themselves using strengths in those specific situations. So that's a
So
simple answer. Yeah.
fuel them rather than fail them is my takeaway
Right.
from your response, Abhishek. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Okay, now the next question is to you both, which goes like this: middle managers are often expected to lead change, even when they are not fully in control. Now, how can organizations empower them to become real change agents? I think this is the question which our audience would definitely love to hear a speaker's perspective. Yeah. Yeah, Abhishek or Chris. So I leave it to you. Let me not pinpoint anyone.
Okay. So I can go first. Yeah, Krish. Yeah.
I was going to say this time you're going first.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, great.
So thank you, Sahil. You go first. So anyone, Sahil, so not just middle managers. So whosoever in the organization is expected to lead change, the first step is giving them role clarity, right? So if you look at, I always go by. So I've been a sports person throughout my life, and I follow sports very very closely, and I see patterns of how successful teams operate. The most fundamental thing that they are able to do is give role clarity to the leaders who are going to lead the change. That's the first step. And when you do that, Sai, you don't, I mean, by giving complete role clarity to people, you kind of give them psychological safety because you know that, okay, you have knowledge, skills, experience to be in this role. This is how I want you to apply yourself in this specific role. Once that happens, they are able to lead change in with full control because they know that they have knowledge, experience, skills, and this is how they can apply themselves. On top of it, if someone is also able to help them discover their natural strengths, it will help them definitely enhance application of what they know in the process of driving change. So this is how it can an organization can empower middle level leaders to become real change agents within the organization.
I was going to echo more.
Kris?
I was going to echo more or less the same thing. Role clarity is fine, but I just take it one step further: is judge them on that role clarity. Don't judge them. Don't take a fish out of water, put him on a tree, and say, "I'm judging you on how you're climbing a tree." This won't work.
Right.
You'd be very clear with them that this is what you are. Second, you need to say, "I trust you.
Mhm.
We will succeed. We will, and I'm there for you. We will succeed. We will fail together, but we will help you develop, and we have your back." I think
Right.
those are the two very important aspects in getting, letting them express themselves, being the change agents, and helping them develop. Right. So
Right.
that would be my answer here.
Fantastic. So I guess, for the benefit of audience, let me try and summarize in the best of my capacity. I guess, so job clarity, Abhishek, as you said, is the first step. And you have adequately complemented Abhishek's response, Kris, that by saying that if there is if obviously, nobody, so no one has the intent to, if you hire someone or middle level, this thing, to set them for failure. Okay, the intent is always to actually set them up for success, and let all the energies be channelized in that direction, just to make sure that, yes, first of all, the individual, and then collectively as a team, we are moving in the right direction. We are rallying towards one common objective. Fantastic point. So I guess we just have around 3.5 minutes, so we can quickly take another question, which would be common to you both, which is, if you had to give just one piece of advice to a middle manager who is feeling stuck or overwhelming today, what would that be? But anyone can take that.
So you go first now.
I'm liking this. I'm liking this. It's like a musical chair. Okay.
No, it's simple. My advice to people is just breathe. I really mean that. It's just breathe. You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have days where you feel that you're going to be overwhelmed. Step back, breathe, you'll be fine.
Right.
That's my advice, which I've got. My mentors have given me that, and that's been the best advice, which has helped me get through all my corporate. Just breathe, sit back, breathe, you'll be fine.
Fantastic. Abhishek, quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree, and I have similar thoughts as if I can give any advice to anyone, is that back yourself. Right? To back yourself, you have to know yourself, and to know yourself, the most simplest way is to find out who you are using a scientific, reliable, valid method called strengths, and breathe more using that understanding about yourself. Absolutely.
Great. Right. I think sometimes it's better. We often gets sometimes better to go back to the basics. B2B, as I say, and it's rather than referring to books or maybe some research papers or some articles, it's better to stick to the very, very fundamental elementary concepts, which are very, very simple. It's right there on the platter and we're not even looking at it. Okay, it's like a dessert is kept on the table, on the platter, but we're just not seeing it and, extending an arm and putting it in the mouth. Fantastic. So I guess that brings us to the end of this podcast. I wish this would have continued. So wonderful. Thank you once again, Abhishek and Kris, for your thoughtful insights and the real world wisdom. You have truly spotlighted the pivotal role of mid-level leaders. And to our wonderful audience, thank you very much for your patient hearing and engaged presence. Your curiosity and commitment to learning what make such kind of conversations look so impactful. So let's continue to champion and invest in our middle managers who are the real catalysts of positive, lasting change in today's organizations. Now, until next time, stay blessed and have a productive week ahead. Keep leading with purpose. Thank you so much once again for sparing your valuable time and being a part of this podcast. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Thank you very much, Sai.
Thank you very much, Kris.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Abhishek.
very much, Sai. Thank you, everyone.